So, namaste everyone, and good to see you and be with you in this journey that we start today. Sure, it was a session last week, but was more like a teaser than the actual journey. And like I said, if you have question, ask them, because I want to not to be just me speaking about things, but also creating a dialogue. And I think in this way we can understand more easily and clarify some things that are not very clear together, because sure, trying to explain things make them clearer for me also. The purpose of the lesson today is to introduce you in the Shaivit world, but not to make you a Shaivit, but just to learn about it, and then using these teachings and these practices in deepening your own practice. And I hope your practice is Hridaya meditation. You will see that there are a lot of connections and ideas that help you and make more clear some things that we do in Hridaya. So this is like an introduction, and I hope it will make more clear what Shaivism is about and what it wants to achieve, and so on and so forth. First of all, Shaivism is a tantric way, and this tantric way, for sure, it's a bit important in understanding what Shaivism is. Okay, just let me see some question already. Someone asked me, how do we become panelists? Yulia, the person that it's in Hridaya France and helps me, promotes you to panelist, and I think she tried to get to everybody. Do I understand correctly? Also, the people who registered but aren't able to be here now online will get the recording. Yes. Everybody that registered will get the recording, because there are people that are in a different time zone and they cannot at this hour participate in live. And for them, because it's a free course, and we try to help everybody to learn about these things. So everybody that registered will get the recording. This is the reason that this session is recorded. Also, I try to make a recording on my own, so we have two in case one fails. Hopefully no, not a single one fails, but sure. And someone asked, how do I see everyone else here? This I don't know. If you are panelist, I think you have to change your view from speaker view to gallery view, and then you will see everybody like we are all in a virtual classroom. And I hope this clears the question and answers. And getting back to Shaivism, I said it's a tantric way, and yes, Tantra, it's somewhat an interesting topic in the West today because of a lot of things that entered in the West, but not the best ones. So we will try first to explain what Tantra means in this context of the Shaivism. Usually Tantra it's defined in opposition with Advaita, because in Advaita Vedanta, sure, not just Advaita, but Advaita Vedanta, the world and the body are just illusions, and we must transcend them to get to the divine. So this transcending is made by isolation. We withdraw from the world, get in a cave, in a monastery, in a hut, somewhere far away, and meditate and think that everything is an illusion out there to get us, to keep us bounded, and we have to escape this, and we make every effort to escape this illusion to get to the good part of the existence. Sure, it's not just like this, but usually it's viewed like this. If you practice in Advaita, the world is an illusion, and to get to the divine, you have to renounce this illusion and separate yourself from this, and this is the way. Actually, God and the divine is viewed like it's something far away in the transcendence. He doesn't want anything to do with the creation because it's there, and everything here it's bound by this illusion. In Tantra, everything is divine, so it's nothing outside God. Everything is divine. So in Tantra you can use everything to get to the divine. Sure, it's not as easy as it sounds, because Maya, illusion, it's out there to get you, yes, like in Advaita, but instead of running from the illusion, you embrace it. And actually in Tantra, the world is not an illusion. It's very real, because it's made of God, it's made of consciousness. So instead of separating and isolating, you actively search God in everything and using everything. But again, it's not easy because of a lot of things. Usually Tantra is described like riding a tiger or walking on a blade of the sword. It's not very easy, but it's not very hard. It depends on everybody. So Tantra, it's this kind of path in which you use energy and consciousness to discover that everything is spiritual in nature, in essence. And the tools for Tantra are again like in yoga, and yoga and Tantra are very connected, especially Hatha Yoga and the modern forms of yoga borrow very much from tantric traditions, because if you read Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, you see there that in that classical presentation of meditation yoga, Patanjali only speaks about consciousness and Purusha and getting to the divine by quieting the mind, and actually the highest thing in yoga is called isolation, Kaivalya. So it's like an Advaitic path. But then meeting Tantrism and meeting Shakti energy, we get to this awakening of Kundalini, of chakras and pranayamas and all the things that define Hatha Yoga movement and the Hatha Yoga practice and all the things that we know in this. Sure, Hridaya, it's like a meeting point of this tradition Advaita Vedanta with that neti meditation, naiti, not this. Neti in Sanskrit comes from this naiti, not this. When you ask yourself, who am I? Usually you answer, not this. Everything that minds brings you forth and say, oh, you are this. No, not this. And just getting all the things that you are not, the one that remains, it's the pure existence. It's not something. So I not say what remains is what you are, because you are not something, you just are. But the path is not this. But also in Hridaya we use this kind of tantric approach in which inside the world, centering ourselves in the heart, we can find this heart of the world and the divine in everything. So Hridaya is like a middle ground between this. And sure is not something new. A lot of people do this kind of meeting between traditions. And in this way, what we learn through Tantra is that yoga and meditation is not just about elevating the consciousness, getting to high and high levels of awareness, but also using energy, integrating that consciousness in the world. It's like you go up, but also you go down. So you can live a full and beautiful life. You don't have to isolate yourself and don't enjoy what life brings you, which I think it's a beautiful thing that Tantra brings, this kind of enjoying the life. Because when you see beauty and love and divine in what you encounter, then you can enjoy and live in the moment. And for sure, when we say Tantra, it's a very encompassing term. So it's not a single tradition, a single thing, like in yoga. You see, in yoga in modern days, if someone says, I practice yoga, you don't know exactly what he practices. He can practice Ashtanga, he can practice Vinyasa, he can practice Iyengar, he can practice Hridaya. A lot of things can be named yoga, and you have to ask for the questions to know what kind of yoga. It's the same with Tantra. There are a lot of various ways to practice, and Shaivism, it's one of them. And now what Tantra means? The actual word in this context of the spiritual practice, it means theory, doctrine, or can actually simply means a book that explains a worldview or way of practice and such. So you will see there are a lot of books or texts called Tantra, like in Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, which you see it's this kind of expounding practices and theories about knowledge. Sure, usually people when speak about Tantra speak about that waving or pattern in which everything is connected and such and such, but and in a Sanskrit dictionary you can find this term like loom or warp, like in the waving term, but it's just an homonym, like word that has the same form but it's different things. Like you see, when you speak about a mouse, it can be that little animal that it's in your house, but it can be a computer thing that helps you navigate the computer. It's the same word but vastly different signification. Sure, in the books that speaks about tantras, you will never find that waving term. So it's never about this thing, but it's more about it's explained like it's separated in two syllables: tan, which means spread, and tra, which means the wisdom that saves. So tantra, you can think about it like spreading the wisdom that saves. Or another thing, or another way to explain the word is that it's a device to expanding the consciousness. Tra means device, and tan means expanding. So it's a device to expand the consciousness. Like mantra means a device for the mind, and yantra means a device to control the energy, for controlling the energy. So this to understand what the word tantra means. Sure, you can also think about the root of the word tan, which means to stretch, to expand, and so it stretches our awareness and expands our capacity for joy, for enjoying the world, like I said. But what defines Tantra, regardless if it's a Buddhist Tantra or a Shaivi Tantra or any kind of Tantra, is this combination between practice and knowledge. So it's not enough just to practice, but you have also to study, to understand what you practice and what you encounter when you practice. So you will see that in Shaivism and also in Buddhism, it's important to train your mind in understanding, not just do some practices and hope for the best. Now, the Shaiva part. What Shiva is the word from which Shaiva derives. Shiva, it's in Shaivism, it's seen like the supreme consciousness, the absolute consciousness. It's called even Anuttara. Anuttara means that cannot be surpassed. It's nothing higher than this, or nothing deeper than this. So Shiva is consciousness, but not consciousness like psychological or individual consciousness, but divine or all-encompassing consciousness. It's like everything has this characteristic of being aware, even if it doesn't have the means to express this awareness. So in Shaivism, Shiva is this, but for sure it's very difficult to relate with this abstract consciousness. So like in every spiritual tradition, this very abstract concept, it's made in a metaphor, in a humanizing thing, and becomes like a person. But sure, it's just a metaphor. Never to think that you will find Shiva as a person. sure, like you will see, everybody is Shiva, but it's Shiva in this essence, not like in this exterior appearance. So when this consciousness enter the world from this transcendence in this called immanence present in the world through Shakti, through energy, because it's a saying in Tantra, Shiva without Shakti, it's Shava. You know, like in Shavasana, which means corpse, it's inert, cannot do anything. So Shiva without Shakti, it's a corpse, it's Shava. Consciousness without energy, it's not moving. Yes? Sure, the reverse is Shakti without Shiva, energy without consciousness is chaos. So the two of them are together in the world. And when Shiva is in the world, sure, this personification of a deity, of a God, help us to connect to this abstract concept. And for this reason, you will see a lot of representation of Shiva. Again, they are just metaphors. So things that helps you to connect with those aspects of that divinity, but again, is not something that you will encounter on the streets. Like usually Shiva is with 4 arms. I think nobody's seen someone with 4 arms. Yes. And also in that Nataraja form, Nataraja means the king of dance, he danced on the demon of forgetfulness. Again, you will not see someone dance on someone else and with 4 arms doing different things with his hands and such and such. Everything is a metaphor. But coming back to this metaphor of Shiva as a dancer is very rich, because usually in Hinduism, the divine, when coming into the world, he performs 3 acts, 3 actions. First is the creation, so he has to manifest things. Then he has to keep those things in existence and then get them back to transcendence. So in Hindu mythology, Brahma is the one that creates, Vishnu is the one that keeps the existence going, and Shiva is the one that metaphorically destroys the things, makes them go back to the transcendence. So usually he's like a fierce appearance, meditating, always meditating, because through meditating he extracts the essence of the world and gets that thing back to the transcendence. It's a cave in a forest. It's the ascetic from the beginning. It's the master of yoga and such. But also he's usually with a Shakti. There is also that metaphor called Ardhanarishvara, which means half Shakti, half Shiva, half man, half woman, that expresses that he is beyond separation, beyond duality. So there are a lot of these kind of metaphors, but in Shaivism, Shiva is seen as this consciousness, and everything that you do is to discover that you are this Shiva consciousness. Actually, there is that poem that Sahaja usually likes to recite, that has that recurring verse, Chidananda Rupah Shivoham Shivoham, which means I am consciousness and bliss without form, I am Shiva, I am Shiva. So when we say this Chidananda Rupah, I am consciousness and bliss without form, we express that our essence is that godlike consciousness, it's Shiva. And from this point of view, everything that we encounter is this play between consciousness and energy. And for this reason, very often the tantras, the texts, are a dialogue between Shiva and Shakti. Someone asks and someone answers. Usually Shakti asks, Shiva answers, but there are tantras that are the other way around. Shiva asks and Shakti answers. And sure, it's not that Shakti doesn't know, but she wants, for the benefit of the world, put Shiva in the position to explain and answer this question. How do I get to the divine consciousness? How do I get to the unity? How do I get to the non-differentiation and such and such? And this is this is Shiva. And for sure, you see, in Tantra, love plays an important role, because love is that experience in which two become one. Usually, when you love someone, you have this desire to become one with that someone. Sure, this expresses in the world with our lover, with the person that we want to embrace, to make love to, but also in spirituality is that bhakti, that devotion. That devotion doesn't mean just the deity is there, I am here, and we are two separate things, and we keep the distance. The devotee wants to become one with the object of the devotion. So bhakti in Tantris means this desire to become one with your object. And I say this because, sure, this non-duality that Shaiva speaks about, it's hard to obtain just in meditation. So usually you will see a lot of masters are in the same time great in knowledge, in jnana, but also in bhakti, in love, and compose poems of love for the divine and for this divine consciousness, because their desire and aspiration, it's this unity. And it's easier when you are in this body to use love as a mean to achieve this unity. It's easier. Sure, as you practice and evolve, that love becomes more encompassing and beautiful and big, but it can start with this. And for this reason, you will see this kind of paradoxical thing in a way you speak about meditation and transcendence and going beyond everything and such, but in the same time embracing everything, living fully a life full of beauty and wonder. And you will see they express this desire to be amazed by everything, to experience this wonderment, which is a beautiful thing, because in a lot of spiritual tradition there is this denial. No, if you encounter something beautiful, that will get you away from the spiritual practice, from the divine, so maybe it's better to keep distance. Or in Shaivism they say, no, this feeling that you experience when you see something beautiful, it's that spanda, is that vibration that can help you go deeper and deeper into your heart. So going back to the history of Shaivism, the first tradition that is called Shaiva, it's Shaivasidanta, and this tradition is based on rituals very similar to the Vedic ones, and in this form of Shaivism it proposed a dualistic philosophy. So Shiva is Shiva, you are you. You become like Shiva, but never Shiva. So yes, in the end, there are lots of Shivas, but you cannot be Shiva. This is the dualistic view. So the divine and the human being are separate and never one. But nevertheless, this is the starting point of, because this is how we view at first the world. We are separated from the world. We are we, and everything is the other. And sure, the goal of Shaivasiddhanta is to become enlightened, but this comes through Shiva's grace. So you perform the rituals and the practices just to receive this grace of Shiva that will bring you to the enlightened experience. And in this tradition, they have a lot of texts called agamas, which are texts with a divine origin. In Shaivasiddhanta, there are like 28 Siddhanta agamas, and a lot of other Shaiva scriptures. And the thing in these agamas is to describe how to worship Shiva in his form of Sada Shiva, the pure Shiva. And this worship is done in public temples and is centered in that linga. You know, the linga, it's that, again, a metaphor for Shaivism. Linga means a sign of the presence of the divine. So, sure, it's a metaphor for Shiva. It's like a phallic symbol. It's that column that resembles a male sexual organ, and around it it's something called yoni, which is a symbol for the feminine sexual organ. The metaphor here is that the whole universe is created by this embrace between Shiva and Shakti. And when they worship this embrace, which is highly symbolic, is not explicit, it's just symbolic. And this is about Shaivasiddhanta. I don't think it's important to explain too much, but just some points. I take a lot of notes about it, but I think it's not important for our subject. But this Shaivasiddhanta tradition is the root of Shaivism, and was very successful in the period in which Kashmir Shaivism appeared. So Shaivasiddhanta is this dualistic view of the world, from which the Kashmir Shaivism appeared. So what we name Kashmir Shaivism, again, is not something unitary. It's like there are various traditions inside this Kashmir Shaivism, but they are linked together in what is called Trika, and I will explain what Trika means a little bit later. The first school of Shaivism, or again of Kashmir Shaivism, it's called Spanda. Spanda, it's a term that we are familiar with. We learn about Spanda in Hridaya, and we know that is that tremor of the heart and such, but actually Spanda was one of the first traditions that can be called Shaivism, Kashmir Shaivism. And sure, its name comes from a root text called Spanda Karikas, the stanzas on vibration. And usually the first master in this tradition is called Vasugupta. Spanda is regarded as being a pulsing, a radiating energy that comes from the Absolute, from the Supreme Consciousness, from Brahman. And additionally, it's the personal energy that manifests itself in everything that we do. And also can be seen as the joyful impulse to create harmony and enjoy life. For this reason, we call it the tremor of the heart. It's that vibration we feel in our souls that makes harmony and beauty around us. Abhinavagupta, it's a master that we will speak often in these lessons. It's an important master of the tradition. Abhinavagupta is saying about Spanda that it's the pulsating of the ecstasy of the divine consciousness, pulsation of the ecstasy. So this word, it's an important part of the Kashmir Shaivist philosophy because in Spanda we believe that the ultimate reality throbs at all times. It's that tremor of the spiritual heart. And sure, what it's the main thing in this doctrine of vibration is this importance of experiencing Spanda, this vibration of pulse of consciousness. What it means usually in this tradition, this pulsing, is that things go out, go in, go out, go in, expands, contracts. It's this kind of pulsating things. And sure, the physical heart is reminding us of this vibration of the heart because it has this pulsating movement. The moment in which this path appeared, it's in the first half of the 9th century. It's not easy to fix in time this because it was at first an oral tradition, but this Vasugupta that I had speak about received the revelation from Shiva in a dream, and Shiva told him that he has to go to a mountain where in a lake it's a big rock, and on that big rock, which is actually still venerated, it doesn't have the Shiva Sutras on her, but it's still venerating that. Vasugupta was seeing on this rock these Shiva Sutras, which were the first was the first text of the Kashmir Shaiva monistic tradition, in which, sure, we will speak about at some point because it's very, very beautiful, and it starts with a first sutra. It's Chaitanyam Atma, the soul is the consciousness, and every chapter starts with this kind of affirmation. And from there, his disciple called Kalabata, who lived during the reign of King Avantivarman during this last half of the 9th century. He is actually the one that some people think that wrote these stanzas on vibration, Spanda Karikas, trying to put in words what his master Vasugupta was saying. Other people say that Vasugupta composed also the Spanda Karikas, but sure, it's not that important who wrote what. It's important that those texts are still with us now, because they were studied and commented upon, and for this reason they were very famous. So a question: where does Kashmir Shaivism stands in regard to Kundalini energy and awakening? Do they have any specific view that differentiate them from other forms of Tantra? Yes, they speak about Kundalini in a very different way, or not so different. They differentiate between different forms of Kundalini. Usually when in West we read about it, Kundalini is just some energy that awakens from Muladhara and goes to Sahasrara, and it's the energy of consciousness and such and such. In Shaivism, actually there are various forms of Kundalini. There is Prana Kundalini, this form of Kundalini which is actually energy, and there is Kundalini of the consciousness that it's a bit different. There is Urdhva Kundalini, it's a Kundalini that starts from a lower part. It's other Kundalini that starts from the heart. Yes, it's a bit different, but still the principle is the same. It's the energy of consciousness, you awaken it, and that brings you to some very spiritual experiences. But sure, it's a thing that we will discuss a little bit later in another lesson, because it's a big subject. Another tradition, I will try to hurry a bit with these traditions because I want to get to the practice today and to what I want to do together. Another important tradition of this Shaiva, of this Kashmir Shaiva, is called Pratya Bishna. Pratya Bishna means the recognition of the self, of the deeper self. And it's the most philosophical part of Shaiva, because it treats with what existence means, what we are in regard of this existence. The name Pratya Bishna comes from a treaty written by Utpaladeva called Ishvara Pratya Bishna Karika, stanzas on the recognition of the God, of the Ishvara, like in Yoga Sutras, Ishvara, it's a name for the God. And what Utpaladeva understands by this recognition is that enlightenment is essentially a profound and irreversible recognition of one's own authentic identity, which is Shiva himself. According to him, and this is what he says in this Ishvara Pratya Bishna Karika, the man blinded by ignorance, by Maya, and bound by his actions, by karma, is fettered to the cycle of birth and death, but when the knowledge inspires the recognition of his divine sovereignty and power, he, full of consciousness, is a liberated soul. What it means that you have to recognize that you are divine, in a few words. And sure, it's not that simple. If it was that simple, sure, everybody was enlightened, but this is what Utpaladeva proposed. I will not explain every thing about these masters, but you will see we will repeat these names again and again, and at some point you will be accustomed with them. So there are not that many masters. So it's this Utpaladeva, which we will speak about a lot, Abhinavagupta, Kshemaraja, which is a disciple of Abhinavagupta. Again, Abhinavagupta is a disciple of Utpaladeva. Somananda, which is the first master of this Pratya Bishna path or line, which is the master of Utpaladeva, and we will learn about these few masters. There are not that many, and it's easy. For explaining this recognition, Abhinavagupta uses this metaphor. The soul that yearns for liberation is like a young woman. A woman that is promised in an arranged marriage to a handsome man. Sure, you know, in India, usually the marriages were arranged. Not so much now, but in the past. And the woman doesn't meet his husband until the day they become married. And sure, people around her tell her about the man that she will become married to. He is a handsome man, he has this quality and that quality. And sure, soon enough, this woman becomes in love, falls in love with this man, even if she never met him. And one day, by chance, they are in the same room. But the woman is indifferent to that man, because he doesn't know that that is the future husband. Still, she starts to recognize the things that the people around her told her about that man, and at some point she has this recognition. This is my lover. This is my future husband. And Abhinavagupta said that it's a bit like this when you recognize your divine nature. At some point you see some quality, at some point you see some quality, and then suddenly you have this full recognition. I am Shiva. I don't have just one quality or another. I am Shiva. So, like I said, the first text of this tradition is called Shiva Drishti, wrote by Somananda, in which he explained this thing that Shiva is everything and we have to become aware of this. They trace their origin to a mythical figure called Triambaka, the one with 3 eyes. And he is considered that is the first master of this line, but is just a tradition. First master is this Somadeva with his teachings, and then Utpaladeva, who refined those teachings in that Ichvara Pratya Bishna Karika, that text about recognition of the divine. And this is this. Then these two schools, Spanda and Pratya Bishna, form the core of Kashmir Shaivism, but there are other traditions like Krama. Krama means means a succession in time, various stages in time. And actually Krama, it's about worshipping Kali. Most of you, I think, know about Kali, which is the goddess of time, and it's another tradition is considered Mahavidya, the great wisdom of the time. And in this tradition, everything has this kind of succession of moments. And the Kalis are governing these moments. So usually they speak about the 12 Kalis, which are separated in 3 groups of 4. These 3 groups of 4 are about the object of knowledge, the knowledge itself, and the subject, the one who is knowing. And each of them is governing the creation, maintaining, resorption, and void between 2 stages. This anakia is called the thing that cannot be expressed, cannot be uttered. And it's a rich tradition, very mystic in his essence. Again, I think we don't have time to explain too much about it, just a few things. Another tradition which is part of this Shaiva, Kashmir Shaiva, it's Kaula or Kula, also named Kula Marga, the Kula path, or Kula Chara, the Kula tradition. Kula means usually family or group of or self-contained unit, and usually it's about the spiritual family in which the master is the father, the wife of the master, I don't know, the consort of the master, it's the mother, and the disciples are the sons and daughters of this. And from this is the entire family, because sure, the disciples become mothers and fathers for other disciples, and like this a tradition it's spread like in a family. These Kula or Kaula practices are closely related to Siddha tradition, to the tradition of the perfect beings, and the Shaktism, the tradition which worship energy in his various forms. And in this tradition, what is the main thing is that there is no impure thing. Usually in Brahmanism and in India, there are a lot of things that makes you impure, that makes you not worthy of the presence of the God. Or Kaula says there is nothing impure. If you want to see something impure, ignorance is the impurity. So if you want to become pure, just don't be an ignorant. So acquire some knowledge. It's not about reading books, but acquire that mystical knowledge by experience. So as long as someone is identified with the Supreme Consciousness, there is nothing impure. And nothing can make him impure. Sure, this kind of view can get to some extreme ways, and Kaulas are known for these transgressions of moral norms or social norms or these kind of things. But what it's important for them is this going directly to the heart of the Lord, the heart of the divine. This heart of the divine, it's the I feeling that we speak in Hridaya. In Shaivism, this I feeling is called aham. And you can say aham when you are still bound consciousness, but you can say aham when you are Shiva. It's like in the Advaita, where you say aham brahma asmi, I am Brahman, I am God. You know, you recognize this kind of thing. And the last tradition is Trika. Trika, actually, it's the name that Abhinavagupta gives to the Kashmir Shaivism, and you will see that in some places Kashmir Shaivism it's called Trika. Trika because it's about a lot of three things, and you will see in the future lessons that we will speak about this kind of three things, like the three powers: Icha, the will, the intention to do anything. If you are a god or a human, you have to have this will to do something, this intention. Then is jnana, knowledge, you have to know how to do it. And kriya, the power of actually do that thing. This is a trinity, three things. Also, usually they refer to Shiva, Shakti, and Nara, which means Shiva, the consciousness, the transcendent thing, Shakti, the creation, the immanent, the energy, and Nara or Anu is the limited being, us, which want to become Shiva using energy, Shakti. And another trinity is about knowledge, in which we have the subject, the one who knows things, which is called pramatri, the subject, pramana, which are the modalities of knowledge, and prameya is the object that we know. Again, usually you will see that every trinity has a fourth thing, fourth or a fifth. Like in the state of consciousness, we have Jagrat, which means the waking state, the Swapna, the dreaming state, and Shushupti, the dreamless sleep, which is another state of consciousness. But also we have Turiya, which is like Samadhi, and Turyatita, beyond Turiya, which is like a Samadhi with eyes open. And in this Trika tradition, we have also something like the Ashtanga of Patanjali, but here it's called Shadanga, the path with 6 limbs, with 6 members that are some of them are like the ones that we know from Patanjali, like pranayama, dharana, pranayama, which is the controlling of the breath, the vital energy, prana, dharana, which is fixating the mind or concentration, dhyana, which is meditation or attentive contemplation on Shiva, is defined in Malini Vijaya Tantra, or a text of this Trika tradition. We have samadhi, which also know from Patanjali. We have pratyahara, but also we have tarka, which is judgment or reasoning, which is defined as the cultivation of knowledge of what to do or what not to do. And sure, very fast. It's a very fast history of this Shaiva tradition. It's very hard to contain everything in a few words, but I hope that you get a glimpse of the big picture of what Kashmir Shaiva means. From the point of view of practices, maybe is not that important. We will discuss some specificities that belong to one of another tradition in the future lessons, but yeah, you get this glimpse into what this tradition means. And now we'll try to do a practice that belongs to Shaiva tradition, and usually we'll try to do this every lessons. I wish that the proportion between this kind of theory thing and the practice will be more towards practice, but today I think the balance is more on the theory. Hope we will change this in the future. The practice we will do today is that centering in the heart. You know that in Hridaya we speak a lot of this maintaining the centering of the heart, awareness of the spiritual heart, and so in Shaivism it's a practice that it's done traditionally, and we will use as a support for this practice some things that are mentioned in Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. Vijnana Bhairava Tantra is a classical text of Shaivism. Actually, they say that it's a part of a bigger Tantra called Hridaya Tantra. And in this Vijnana Bhairava Tantra are presented 112 methods of acquiring this Shiva consciousness. I hesitate to call them methods of meditation because some of them are just spontaneous awareness of a moment in which you are. Like the first bite after you suffer from hunger for a long period of time. If you are aware of that first bite, you can get that supreme consciousness and such and such. So some of them are just be in the moment, be fully in the moment. But some of them are more meditative in the way they are practiced. And this centering in the heart, you will see it's found in a few places that in this Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. It's a practice that in various ways is repeated. So in this 112, a few of them are about centering in the heart. Now, what this centering means? Usually when first thing that we do when we hear center yourself in the heart, is like we try to look with our awareness, with our mind, from the head to the heart, because usually our awareness is more in the head. And the first thing is like we try to look from the mind to the heart. But this is not centering. Centering means be in the center, not just pay attention that you have a center and it's somewhere around this area in the middle of the chest, a little to the right, that point that you spontaneously point when you say I. Yeah, it's just something that we hear, but we usually don't fully express in this being there. So these practices want us to become present in this space of the heart, because it's not about a point in the body. I think everybody understands that it's not about a point in the chest that you can put an X on and you know is there. It's not about the body. This area, this chest area, like Ramana said, and also this Shaiva tradition said, it's just a portal, a gate to this inner consciousness, to this inner space. Actually, in tradition is called Hritakasha, the space of the heart. It's like you enter in a new realm, a new space. So centering, being in the heart, is more than just be aware of the chest area. I hope everybody already know this. Or if you don't already know this, I hope now it's more clear that it's not about the body, it's about this inner space of consciousness. And the place on the body is just the gate, the portal from which we enter this inner reality. And in this Vijnana, they use breathing to become aware of this space. And actually the 112 methods that are exposed in this Vijnana Bhairava starts with this. In 4 sutras are presented 4 different ways to use breathing to become aware of this space or to enter this space. For in Shaivism, heart is not, like in Hridaya, is not about a point. Again, it's not about a point in the body. In Shaivism, it's more about a space between things. It's the center of awareness. So when they speak about Hridaya, they speak about this center of awareness, of consciousness, which is another dimension of existence. Yes, it's not, again, and I stress these things because they are important, is not about the body. Sure, using breathing to become aware of this in-between space can be seen like about the body. But again, in the body is just the gate, the portal to this awareness. And like you will see in these sutras, this in-between space, at first it's in between breathings, then it's about in between thoughts, yes, then it's about surrendering to this moment of in between. It's a very special feeling, and it has to do with this spanda, because it's like a waving, it's like a pulsation between in and out, between things. So the first sutra, I will use a translation, it's a translation of Jayadev Singh mostly. Maybe some things are from others, but most of the translation is from Jayadev Singh. They introduced this notion of Dvadashanta. Dvadashanta means 12 fingers, actually 12 thumbs, 12 big fingers of the hand, 12 thumbs. This distance of 12 fingers, it's used a lot in Shaivism. Actually, in between chakras, they think there are 12 fingers. So, when they speak about this Dvadashanta, these 12 fingers, it can mean any space away from something 12 fingers. But in these sutras, Dvadashanta means exactly this space between inhalation, exhalation, between thoughts. And this is like a key to read further in Vijnana Bhairava, because when they explain these sutras, a lot of them try to place these Dvadashantas, and there are a lot of them. There is the heart, which is considered the inner Dvadashanta. There is a place outside of nostrils in the front, which is Dvadashanta. There is a higher Dvadashanta, which is Brahmarandra, the opening of Brahma in the upper part of the skull. There is a 12th finger outside the skull, which is called Dvadashanta, which is like Sahasrara. There are a lot of Dvadashantas, but if we understand Dvadashanta as being this space between things, then it's not about a physical place, but about finding this in-between space. And when I say in-between, actually, you will see when you have this experience of Hritakasha, of the space of the heart, or also it's called sometimes Chidakasha, the space of the consciousness. It's not that it's in between, but it's the space on which things manifest, like thoughts. So thoughts appear in this space of the consciousness. They stay for a while and then go. This space remains there, but we are not aware of it, like in the way we are not aware of the space where a movie is projected. When you go to a cinema theater, usually you look at what? A white screen. You look at what? You look at a white screen. But then, when the movie starts, on that white screen is projected light, colored light in movement. And you become so engrossed in that experience that you forget that you just look at a white screen. And you think, I am looking at a movie. You forget about the white screen. When the movie ends, oh, it's just a white screen that I was looking for 2 hours, yes? It's like this. We are looking at our thoughts that are projected on this inner space of consciousness and think that this is what our mind, our consciousness is, the thoughts that are projected. And not just the thoughts, the emotions, the sensation that we feel in the body are projected on this inner space. So when we think about this in between, it's actually this inner space that contains all experiences, be it thoughts, emotions, sensations. And discovering this, it's like we discover the stillness and quietness that is always there. It's like if you are in a movie theater and the movie is bad, you are aware of the white screen. Yeah. But the movie of our lives is very entertaining, and we never forget about it and forget about the consciousness, the space of the heart. So the first sutra is like this. The supreme energy, which has the nature of Visarga, Visarga is the creative energy, continues incessantly to move upwards from the heart to Dvadashanta as expiration and downward from Dvadashanta to the heart center as inspiration. By fixing firmly the mind in the two places of their origin, inspiration and expiration, heart center and Dvadashanta, the state of wholeness will be revealed. So the sutra says that there are 2 points of extremity of the breathing. One point is inside. When you inhale, the mind goes inside until a certain point, and then from that point starts to go outside. And when it goes outside, it goes to a certain point, and from that point comes inside. This is the simple fact of the breathing, yes. For sure, the breathing is not about a point. When we inhale, the air goes to the lungs, and then from the lungs to our cells, and from our cells back to our lungs, and from the lungs outside in the space around us, from the space. It's not about a point. But when our mind tries to follow the breathing, then it's about 2 points, one inside and one outside. Again, for this kind of awareness, for us is not important where these points are, but that feeling that there is a moment in which inhalation will become exhalation. And it's like in between them, it's a very subtle moment of stillness. It's like when you follow a wave, yes? When you go up, it's a very, very small moment in which it's a balance between up and down. It's a very small. Then you go down, and it's a very, very small moment in time where it's a balance between them, and then you go up. It's like this. What we want to feel and discover is this moment of balance, which sure in this first sutra it's a space. It's a moment, it's a place. Let's say it like this. The first sutra speaks about a place where this balance between inhalation and exhalation is achieved. And we have to be aware of this space where this balance appears. So this is the first awareness of this space where these two movements are in balance. Then, and again, sure, some people like to focus, oh, it's a point there and it's a point there. For us, it's not that important where exactly is that point, but to become aware of this space of balance between those two moments. And for the purpose of this practice, because it's centering in the heart, we will not pay attention to the external thing, be it in the front, be it in the crown of the head or in the sahasrara. We will just be aware of that space inside where the inhalation and exhalation are in balance, in equilibrium. And then the next sutra, the first one was 24, the next one is 25. Sure, Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, it's also a dialogue between Shakti and Shiva. Shakti, it's Bhairavi, Shiva is called Bhairava in this text. And until Sutra 24, the first 23 sutras, it's the Shakti asking Shiva, how is this reality, how I get to the Supreme Consciousness? And Shiva said, oh, it's a good question, I will explain you. And so the explaining starts with, or the practices to get to the Supreme Consciousness start with the 24th Sutra. The 25th Sutra, it's like this. For the expiration, which comes from within, from the center of the body, Hrit, the spiritual heart, there is a break or a void for a split second in Vadashanta. And for the inspiration coming from Vadashanta, there is a split second break in the center of the body, in the spiritual heart, in Hrit. If you set your mind firmly on these two moments of void, you will realize by the means of Bhairavi, by the means of Shakti, of Shiva, the essential form of Bhairava, of Shiva, is manifesting in these two voids. So what he means that if you are aware of these voids, you will become aware of this consciousness of Shiva. So, at first it was a space. Now there is a time. What it's about, sorry, I was about to lose my mouse. Not the small creature, but the actual mouse for the computer. So what it means, this next level of practice, of awareness, is that this in-between space, it's a moment in time. Actually, if we are correct, it's a moment outside of time, because it's like a suspension between two movements, in and out. It's a very short moment. You don't have to make a kumbhaka out of it, don't have to keep your breath in or out. It's just to be aware of that. It's a moment in which you are suspended in time, in space, in that inner Hritakasha, inner space of the heart. It's a very beautiful sensation, being outside of time and space, but actually being in the time of space and space of the heart. For a moment. It's not long, but that moment, because it's outside of time, can be like eternity. it's all about awareness of just being there. And then in the 26th Sutra of Vijnana Bhairava, they say, when by the dissolution of all mental constructs, the middle state, the center, it's acknowledged, the energy of breath will neither move out as exhalation nor enter as inhalation. In this way, by the means of Bhairavi, the energy of Shiva, which manifests itself as the cessation of expiration and inspiration, the reality of Bhairava is revealed. Again, at first it's a moment in space, then it's a moment in time, and then it's this dissolution of the mind. We become aware that remaining suspended in between breaths, we have no thoughts. The mind is still, it's quiet for a very, very brief moment. We become aware that the thoughts are not a continuous flow of images and words and things. There are spaces, and these spaces are allowing us to see that inner space of consciousness. And sure, another effect of this practice is that these moments of suspension, of pause, will interrupt the inner story, those things that preoccupies us all the times. For a brief moment, we put pause on the inner movie or on the inner documentary. And then, sure, it can continue, but another pause, and we start to pay more attention to the stillness, to the quietness on which these things appear, than to the noise of the inner story. So in this gap between inhalation and inhalation, we become aware that there is a gap between thoughts. And this actually is a common theme in yoga, that mind and breath is connected. So if you influence one, you influence the other. So if you suspend the breathing, then the mind becomes suspended. But in this practice, it's not about holding your breath. Yes, it's about awareness of that short moment in which your breath is suspended between. And what this sutra mentions is that it can appear like a desire or a tendency to remain there, to keep or to holding your breath, but it's not like you want to, it's like it happens. And this is called in yoga Kevala Kumbhaka, or cessation of breath, or keeping the breath inside. Again, it's a spontaneous thing. It's not like you force it, because usually when you force something in the breathing department, it doesn't go well, you know. So this is like you actually surrender in this void between breaths and thoughts. You just be there without wanting something, without doing something, just being there. And then the fourth sutra, the 27th, says like, when the energy of breath stops naturally at the end of exhalation and at the end of inspiration, in the end of this form of breathing, Shakti is known to be full of peace. And through this power of peace, the essence of stillness is revealed. So the last sutra is just make a little pause. Just be for a while there. Surrender in that gap. It's usually, in the beginning of Hridaya meditation, we have this insert a short pause between inhalation and exhalation. It's about this kind of just be in between for a while. Surrender yourself there. Don't do anything. Just be in between. Yeah, not just be anyhow, but in between. Discovering this space that is in between. And these four sutras are the beginning of Vijnana, but not the end of this practice of centering in the heart. In the 49th sutra, it's also said like this: he whose mind together with the other senses is merged in the interior of space of the heart, who has entered mentally into the center of the two balls of the heart lotus, who has excluded everything else from consciousness, acquired the highest fortune, O beautiful one. When he says the highest fortune, don't think it's about winning the lottery. Yes, I think you are aware of this. Sure, the lottery for the yogi is acquiring the divine consciousness, and this is the highest fortune for a yogi. This is about what this sutra is saying. So, what is these two balls of the lotus heart? You can think about them like one looking down and one looking up. And in between them is the center that this sutra mentions. So the one who merges the mind together with the other senses in the interior space of the heart, which is between the two balls of the lotuses. The way they explain is that one lotus is the object of knowledge, the other one is the means to knowledge, and the middle is the subject, the consciousness, and this is the Hrit, this is the center. But actually you can think about, yes, the upward facing lotus is the exhalation, the downward facing lotus is the inhalation, and in between them is the center. Because any two movements, up and down, in and out, have this gap between them. So what this sutra means is go with your mind in that place in between. Yes, sure, you can think in between knowledge and means of knowledge, in between, but what it's important is to be in between. Yes, finding that liminal space, that place. And then in the 15th sutra, what is after 49? The 15th sutra. It's saying like this: when the body of the yogi is penetrated by consciousness in all parts, and his mind, which has become firm by one-pointedness, is dissolved in Vadashanta, situated in the body, then that yogi, whose intellect has become firm, experience the characteristics of reality. Experience reality, big It's like the real reality, not the illusory one. So the next sutra is like you have to be focused on this inner reality and dissolve your mind. The term is laya, Laya, it's often a term used in yoga, in traditional yoga, in Hatha Yoga Pradipika and such, which means this dissolving of the mind. In Hatha Yoga Pradipika using nada, but here just dissolving your mind by being there, being focused in that place. And then in the 51 Sutra, it says if one fixes one's mind at Vadashanta again and again, in whatever way and whatever place, the fluctuation of his mind will diminish, and in a few days he will acquire an extraordinary state. So actually here they say what usually you do when you center yourself in the heart. Be there in which way you can, in whatever place you are. Yes, in whatever moment. If you're eating, if you're working, if you're washing dishes, just be in the heart. Experience the world from the heart. If you can do this for a few days, but without pause, yeah, because if you do this for a while, then forget about it, then remember again, and then it's not working. You have to be all the time focused. Then something extraordinary will happen. And then in the 55th Sutra, it's again mentioned this centering in the heart, like having meditating on the Shakti as thick and then weak in the region of Vadashanta, weak by doing pranayama, and then entering into the heart and meditating on it, one attains freedom in one's dreams. Usually they present this sutra as a technique that you do when you go to sleep. If you go to sleep centered in the heart, you will attain freedom in your dreams. And it's actually a very, very special experience when you are dreaming yourself free of the body, free of the limitation of this world. You can fly, you can float, you can feel amazing. And then in the 64th Sutra, by merging together the two breaths, the exhalation and inhalation, both inside and outside, in those two extreme points, you become able to spontaneously experience the intuitive state of equanimity or equality. It's actually a very important thing in yoga, in which you become equal. So if someone praises you, you feel okay. If someone critiques you, it's also okay. Yes, if it's cold outside, it's okay. If it's very warm outside, it's also okay. For yogis, this kind of being the same is not like you ignore all the things and whatever. It's for you, it's equally interesting. It's equally someone has to leave, and yes, I extended my explanation more than enough. I think it's time to let the explanations go and just try to practice for a while. If it's okay with you, we'll stay a little bit longer than the time we propose, so longer than 10 and a half, because we'll try to experience at least the four main sutras. So finding the space of the heart, finding the eternity of the heart and that place in between thoughts, and then just surrender to being. And for this, get in the comfortable position in which you can keep your back straight. Now the only requirement is to have the back straight and be comfortable enough to stay still, like in Yoga Sutras, that stiram sukham, firmness and relaxation, and also stillness. Close your eyes and just become aware of the breathing. It comes in, it comes out. Just be aware of it without trying to modify it in any way. And now for the first awareness, follow the breathing inside when you inhale to that inner point in the middle of the chest somewhere, and try to discover, to be aware of the place where inhalation becomes exhalation. It's a relaxed awareness. You go in to that place, stay for a blink and then go out, and gradually you become aware of that place in which this switching takes place, in which inhalations become exhalation. The feeling is like you're watching the waves on the seashore, some lazy waves that just go on the beach and then go back to the sea in that slow motion. And following that slow motion, there is a point in space when they change the direction. Our breathing is like those lazy waves going in and then going back out. And now we pay attention to that void, that short moment of eternity in between breathings. Inhale, eternity, exhale. You are now more aware of this space and time inside our heart, our spiritual heart. It's another space, another time that our body is this inner realm of consciousness. Inhale, stay there for a while, exhale. And we become aware that in that moment, the mind is still, it's absolutely still. And we enjoy that short stillness that allows us to discover the inner space of the heart, which is stillness and love and beauty. Just surrender in these moments of stillness. Inhale, being in the heart. Exhale, remaining in the heart. Keeping that waving motion. That awakens our tremor of the heart, that spanda. Inhale, surrender in the heart. Exhale, surrender in the heart. Just be, without being someone or something. Just be in the heart. Keeping the awareness of the heart, we slowly open our eyes. The beauty of this kind of awareness using the breathing is that you can do this in every moment, just using your breath to get in that inner space. If you're walking, if you're washing the dishes or any kind of action, you can keep this awareness, and when it becomes more natural, it's a way to experience the world from this place of wonder and beauty and love. Now, if you have questions, someone have wrote some. Someone asked what is the translation that you are reading for the sutras for reference. It's the Jayadev one, Jayadev Singh. It's a classical one, not the best one, but it's a classic. And you can find it, I think, on Amazon, or if you are on Scribd, also you can find it there. I think the one that I saw, it's actually has a beautiful name, but I don't remember it exactly. I will tell you, maybe not next time. It's a beautiful name, but I don't remember it. But sure, there are various translations of this Vijnana Bhairava, and you can find for free online. I think Christopher Wallis has some. What do you mean by surrendering in the heart? It sent my mind into confusion and thinking. So surrendering, it's like you don't do anything. So you don't have to think or do, or just be there. This is surrender. It's like when you got home from your work and you are tired and you just surrender to the couch. Yeah, just don't do anything. It's like a little bit like this. In the heart, in that space that you discover in your heart, you just be there. Don't try to do something, don't try to be something, don't try to discover something, just be there. This is the moment in which you just are. For this reason, it's called surrender. Yes, because usually we fight, we want something, we meditate for discovering that or making the mind like that, and we try to impose our will to the process. But from time to time, if you can, just let the things go and just be. This is surrender. It's not something complex, or just be. So another question. Also, the one, if you have the mic and want to ask live, you can do it.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Julia.
Hello,
Nice
Julia.
to meet you.
Nice to meet
I have
you.
a question that I want to do with voice. It's two questions, in fact. First one is you mentioned a lot the Vijnana of Tantra, and before this you mentioned a lot of different schools of Tantra of Shaivism. Vijnana of Tantra comes from which school, or is like a
It's not,
what is Vijnana
yes,
Bhairava
Vijnana
Tantra?
Bhairava is not from a school, but is used by different schools because it's, sure, I didn't enter into this kind of detail, but there are some tantras which are very old, and different lines of different tradition of tantra use these tantras, this text, to practice. Usually, yes, it's only one tantra, but sure, some borrow from various tantra. In Shaivism is this Rudrayamala tantra, which is not was not saved for our days. We don't know how was this Rudrayamala tantra. We only have this Vijnana Bhairava tantra, which we don't know if it actually from Rudrayamala tantra or is just called that it has this origin, because Rudrayamala means the union between Rudra and his Shakti. So any text can has this origin of Yamala, of uniting Shiva and Shakti. But tradition says that Vijnana Bhairava is part of this Rudrayamala, and also another text called Paratrisika, another important text for this tradition. Also this Malini Vijaya Tantra, which also it's old, before these schools appeared. Only the Spanda Karika and Shiva Sutras are new to tradition. And also this Ishvara Pratya Bishna, the Shiva Sutras and Spanda Karikas are viewed as revelation. Shiva transmitted them to this Vasugupta. But Ishvara Pratya Bishna Karika, it's a text written by Utpaladeva. It's not a revelation, but it's what he experienced and wanted to share to the world. So Pratya Bishna, this recognition school, has these texts that are written by specific persons. Also, they base their affirmation in the old tantras. It's not like they say, this is the new thing that I discover and nobody knows it until me. But sure, there are some ideas that they are clarified in those texts that until them they are not put in those words, and for this reason they are regarded as the founders of those schools.
Okay. And as far as you know, the Vijnana Tantra is older than the Kashmir Shaivism school?
Yes, for sure, for sure.
For sure?
For sure.
Okay.
It's
Do you
not
have an
disputed.
idea of dates, like how old is it or how older is it?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. The Tantra itself appeared around 5th century. So it's after that point. But exactly the moment it's not fixed. The problem with this tradition is like the texts is not like they were printed like in our time. So you have this book printed in thousands of exemplaries. Usually the book has to be copied. So someone somewhere has to by hand copy that text. And also the problem in India is that the support, the material in which they are written, usually is not something that endures. So they have to, from time to time, recopy the text. And if the text itself doesn't have something to place it in time, then it's very difficult to say when. Sure, some study the way in which the language is used. So if it's used in this way, maybe it's in that period of time and such, but it's a very difficult process because, like I said, Vijnana Bhairava and Paratrisika, both of them maintain that they are part of Hridaya Mala, but they have different styles. So people said, okay, they cannot be part of the same text because there is too much a difference of the style. I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, it was great. I have a second question.
Yes.
On a different topic. We do a lot of practice centering in the heart. Like I've been to Hridaya many times, and I've been to the silent retreats, and now here we are talking about the centering in the heart again. Do you know if there are practices centering in the womb, especially for women? I feel that the yoni is like something very big and important, and knowing the sexual practice of Tantra and more this part of Tantra, the womb and the yoni is something very big. Do you know if there are texts or practices around it, and if the yoni or the womb is recognized as something as big as the heart, or no? It's like just the heart is the biggest center, that's it.
Again, it's not about the heart as a point in body. So you can have the heart in the womb for this matter, you know. It's not about the body in this centering in the heart. It's another place, another time. It's an entire different realm. Sure, there are texts that speak about yoni. There is a Yoni Hridaya Tantra or Yoni Tantra, which speaks about yoni as a metaphor for this creation of the world and Shakti and such. But again, it's not about the body. The body is just the portal to entering this spiritual reality. And for sure, you can enter it from the big toe or from the Brumadhya, from between the eyebrows, or from Brahmarandra, crown of the head. There are various points. And if you feel like your yoni or your womb, it's the portal for you, nothing stops you to enter this reality from there. But don't think that that place is more important than this place or that place, because they are just these gates, these portals. And sure, for our mind, it's like this: oh, the chest is so important, or the crown is so Sahasrara is so important, or Agnya is so important, the third eye, and various tradition fight each other. This is more important, that is more important, but they lose this thing from sight, that it's not about the body. The body is just the place in this world in which our consciousness interacts with the things around it. But we want to transcend this ephemeral existence, because the body is just for a while. It's the way it is. So if we are attached to this reality that it's transient, and we miss the important thing. So again, if the womb is your gate, go through it.
Thank you so much.
So let's see other questions. Yeah, it's just a goodbye. Someone asked me, did you mean the Radiance Sutras by Laurine Roche before? That is a very beautiful translation. Yes, but it's not exactly a translation. That Radiance Sutras by Laurine Roche is more like a poetic interpretation of the sutras. If you want to study the sutras, I recommend you something more close to the text itself, because there are various ways in which this Vijnana Bhairava was used by. There is a commentary by Osho, for example. Yes, and he used for this text translation made by a guy called Paul Reps, I think, which only mentioned the 112 things and translated them in a book of Zen. So he wasn't very keen on staying close to the original text because he wanted to use it as an example for his Zen things. So Laurine Roche, it's a beautiful thing, but if you want to have some things closer to the tradition, I think those of translation of Jayadev things which actually have some explanation about the sutras. There is a translation in French, I'm afraid, of Lilian Silburn, of Vijnana Bhairava. There is also some things said by Lakshmanju. Lakshmanju was like the last true master of Shaivism, and he commented on the sutras but didn't translate the sutras. So there are some books which are called Vijnana Bhairava by Lakshmanju, in which the actual translation of the sutra is done by another scholar, a disciple of Lakshmanju, a woman called Bettina Boimer, which is also interesting to read. So there are a lot of translations, and usually myself prefer to look at all of them to get an idea, and also to look at the Sanskrit text. And Laurine Roche actually had this good thing that he put the Sanskrit text. So if you know a little bit of Sanskrit, you get an idea about the text. Okay. So someone says like this, Omar says like this: if I understand well, and I know it can be understood intellectually, the heart space is about being open to what is, being the space in which everything is appearing, being the openness. Is that right? In a way, yes. It's about discovering that everything is consciousness. This space that we speak about, it's actually consciousness, divine consciousness. Everything it's in this space of divine consciousness, and we gradually, by all these practices, become aware of this. And at first it's with eyes closed inside of us, but then opening the eyes, we start to see that this divine consciousness, it's everywhere, in every little thing, even in those most humble things. But at first, yes, it's just this openness to what is. And when we speak about a space, it's about being present, because you see, when you are aware of a space, if you close your eyes and imagine that you are at home, it's this kind of feeling, that presence, that being in that space, So being in the heart, it's a bit like being at home. That home, which is, it's a bit of cliche. Your home is where your heart is, but it's real. your heart, it's your home from this point of view. Someone asked, you were mentioning the transcendence of time and space. Will thus the Kali Tantra be extra helpful for this practice? Yes, extra helpful, I don't know. It depends very much on your heart. Yes, because it's like you have to have this kind of openness to Kali. You see, in this tradition, they are not forcing you to be this or that. Yes, there is this possibility to become aware, but in this tradition, Kali is not like that goddess with tongue out, full of blood, with an axe in a hand and a head severed in the other. It's not like this. It's about the energy of the time, to be aware of these different energies of different moments, and your transition from the exterior world to the inner consciousness, it's in this kind of moments. Yes, there is the object, you perceive it, then it becomes resorbed in a consciousness, then this moment of void, then is the knowledge of the object, and there are these kind of steps that you take to go inside, which are governed by a specific Kali in Krama tradition. So it's not about goddesses that you worship so much, but about this awareness of these moments in time, in this transition from the exterior to interior. But sure, there are different traditions that evolved from the Krama and Shaiva tradition. For example, Sri Vidya, which is also now it's still alive, is not like was in the Abhinavagupta's time, but still alive, with mantras of Tripura Sundari and that beautiful yantra of Sri Vidya. So yes, there are a lot of possibilities. But extra, I tend to not go to extremes. So extra, it's helpful, but extra it depends on the person. For someone can be extra, for someone just helpful, and someone can say, I don't resonate with this. So yes, for you, it can be extra. Hope this helps. It's already late for you, but if you have questions, sure, we can stay as long as you want. Until the morning meditation, we have time. The meditation on Insight Timer is from here with Simona, and we do it in this little studio we have in Kamala Center. So next time, sure, a lot of person had to go, but next time we will speak about Bhavana, which I think you will like very much. It's a very beautiful concept and very beautiful practice. So the thing that we will do next week will be about practice, and we try various ways in which this Bhavana can be practiced. And for now, have a beautiful evening, for some day for others. Thank you very much for being here in this space of the heart in which distance doesn't matter,